Soil has texture. If you've ever gardened with your bare hands, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Soil doesn't exactly feel smooth. It can feel sandy, woody, or even pebble-like. Sometimes this is because of the additions that people put into soil, like wood chips or vermiculite. Other times this is because this is how the soil naturally is in a particular area. But in order to classify what type of soil that you have, you need to know what textures it's made out of. And for that, we use the soil texture triangle. Today's video is part 1 of our soil particle series. We're going to talk about the basics of sand, silt, and clay. So stay tuned on Soils with Sorrel. Everything has a texture. Your skin, my hair wrap, these plants, everything feels different, and all those different textures and feels serve a purpose. You grew up putting objects in your hand and saying, that feels smooth, or that feels rough, and your experiences in the world have been formed because you relate to the feel of things around you. The same thing applies to soil, but it's not something that we grew up knowing. Unless you were the child of a soil enthusiast, you probably didn't hold soil in your hand and talk about its texture. But as an adult, it's important to understand what textures make up soil and why. This isn't just important for gardening. Remember how we talked about how soil can be used for building? Engineers need to know how smooth, how rough, and how stable the soil is so they can make sure that they will be able to safely build on it. Would you want to live on a building that's built entirely on loose sand? Probably not. Plants want to live in soil that will structurally support them as well. If the soil is too sandy or loose, the roots don't have much that they can hold on to, and the plant becomes unstable. If the soil is too clay and hard, the roots can't expand and the plant won't grow. So what textures and particle sizes make up soil? Soil is broken down into 3 particle sizes: sand, silt, and clay. Sand is considered particle sizes between 2 millimeters and 0.05 millimeters. Silt is considered particle sizes between 0.05 millimeters and 0.002 millimeters. Clay is considered particle sizes less than 0.002 millimeters. For those of us who understand inches better than millimeters, here are the conversions. You get it, these are really small particle sizes. Sand is the largest of the particle sizes that is most visible to us. We can easily see and feel sand, and it helps to create large pore spaces that we talked about in our air and water video. Sand allows for a lot of drainage. If you pour water into sand, you can see that the water will go down through the layers, otherwise known as the soil profile, relatively easily. This means that the sand can't hold on to water, which is bad for plants because plants need to access the water in the soil in order to live. Silt are the medium particle sizes between sand and clay. Silt has smaller soil pore spaces than sand, which means that it can hold on to air and water a little bit better. If water is poured on top, it will go through the soil profile layers, but it won't drain as fast. This helps plants grow because they're able to access the water that's in these layers. Silt is also more structurally sound than sand. This means that the plant roots can grow and expand and have something to anchor onto so they don't just blow away with the wind. Clay is the smallest or finest of the soil particle sizes. Because it's so small, they make for really tiny soil pore spaces where air and water can hide. If you pour water through it, it doesn't drain very well. Sometimes the water can spread out more to the sides than down. This means that clay has really poor drainage because it just stays in the layers and doesn't allow for the plant roots or the soil layers to dry. Sometimes the top of clay can look really dry, when underneath it's actually very wet. This can mislead a lot of gardeners who think that they need to water their soil, when in fact that they don't. Since clay can hold on to water so easily, plants tend to not like clay soil so much because they don't have time to dry out between waterings. The soil texture triangle helps us to classify soils depending on what percentage of sand, silt, and clay is in the soil. And that's really helpful for us because that helps us to understand what can grow in that soil as well as what can be built on top of that soil. In our next video, we're going to talk about these categories in the soil texture triangle and do a couple of demonstrations to help you determine what type of soil that you may have in your garden. So that's it for now. Thank you for watching my video. I hope to see you again soon. And until then, save the soil.